Hey everybody, it's the Commodore from the Clan of the Grey Wolf, and you are watching the weekly Wringer series here on clanofthegraywolf.com. It's time for the special Mother's Day edition on this busy Mother's Day weekend. This is going to be an interesting one because I've got to wrap up last week's weekly Wringer, which really focused a very heavy discussion about the PlayStation brand and the crisis that it is currently undergoing with the PlayStation Network still being down as of coming into this week. So I've got to talk about that, and that was a very good and lengthy conversation on the comments section for last week's Wringer. And I'm going to give you a lot of thoughts on that. I'm going to give you kind of a dump on it, just a brain dump on what I think about what's going on with PlayStation. And if you don't care, then fast forward to the end where I will give you a question about that actually has a Mother's Day theme to it for all of your parents that play video games or don't. So now, so I mentioned the PlayStation thing. I want to say one thing right off the bat. Normally, I really love it when you guys take a question and really bring it into all different directions. Maybe ones that I never even intended for you to bring it in the first place. But this week I was a little disappointed, and the reason why is because a lot of you are really talking about Sony when the question was really about the PlayStation brand, if that makes any sense. Excuse me. So Sony is a global corporation with tremendous reach that has product lines that are so vast and expansive they would make the PlayStation brand look ridiculously small, and do. So I'm not necessarily interested in making a lot of comments about Sony because I'm not sure they're very relevant. What I really wanted to ask the question for was really about the PlayStation brand, which after everything that's happened in terms of the PS3, the PlayStation Portables, as I mentioned last time, and the PSN hacks, which came after the news earlier, or I guess late last year, of the PlayStation being hacked into and firmware being compromised and so on and so forth. So it's been kind of a series of really difficult steps for Sony's PlayStation brand, and that's why I wanted to hear what you guys had to say about PlayStation. And that didn't necessarily happen. I had a lot of people that may have meant to be talking about PlayStation or might have used Sony interchangeably with PlayStation. But that didn't happen very often. So this week, I'm going to just kind of focus on some of the, rather than kind of running through the contributions of the community, I'm going to go and just kind of focus on giving my thoughts to wrap up the conversation from last week. Not that some of what you guys said wasn't great. It was, and I'm going to bring up some of those topics. I just want to be clear. You know, in this one, I was really looking for a PlayStation argument and not a Sony argument. And I think a lot of people got really crazy about the Sony argument, which I think is another ringer for another time. So first of all, some course correction. There were a couple places where it was noted about the attacks that have been ongoing with the PlayStation Network. I have to say a few things about that. One, first of all, there have been differentiating accounts out there from Sony itself. There have been two different stories that have come out from Sony. One, that Anonymous was not responsible for the attack. And the second one, which didn't actually say who was responsible for the attack, but just that something from Anonymous, or something with Anonymous's name, was actually found on their servers. Very different scenario. Plus, you have the Anonymous group themselves actually putting out there that they were not in any way responsible. Their mission was to attack Sony and not to attack anything that would contain credit card information or otherwise compromise personal data. So, it would seem very obvious to me that the group Anonymous is not behind the attacks, but that instead there might be a fringe group that could also be a subsection of Anonymous that doesn't necessarily deal with any kind of hierarchy from them, that could be responsible for these attacks. Who knows? The point is, a select few group of people have compromised Sony, and I don't know what the outcome is going to be for them, although I would say that the odds are quite against them. Obviously, cyber attacks happen every single day. There's no way, and some of you address this, they need to get better security. Okay, well, that is, most people don't understand that security is largely not a simple fact of buying a lot of boxes and plugging them in and now you're secure. Okay? A security policy is generally about 20% hardware and 80% policy. What that means is that most compromises that happen in terms of security happen for reasons beyond a bulked security of an organization, and happens instead because of policy. So, for example, if you go outside and you've created a password for your username and password at work, and you walk outside your house and someone sees that you own a Nintendo, and then they go in and use your username and type in Nintendo and and then all of a sudden they have corporate network asset or access. Is that your fault, or is it the network's fault, or is it the people that installed the security? The point is, guys, that the people that got access to this could have easily had help. The people that got access to this, we have no idea yet how they received access, but it's not necessarily a problem of Sony security hardware or Sony security systems. So I want to throw that out there first and foremost. Everybody undergoes cyber attacks, including humble old clanofthegraywolf.com. We've been attacked a few times. While we haven't been brought down, we certainly, actually we have been brought down. I can't say that. We've had compromising errors that have really helped to collapse the infrastructure of the website. And we've had to take it down a few times, and I've had to go through, and luckily been very lucky enough. I keep frequent backups of the site. Just been lucky, I guess. But we've tried to do everything we can from a policy standpoint, and we've tried to do everything that we can from a management and provider standpoint of everything we can do to protect ourselves. But at the end of the day, there's nothing that's 100% sure. So I want to dispel that as well. But here's what I was looking at in terms of PlayStation branding. All right, the PlayStation brand, as I mentioned last time, has always been really synonymous ever since about 1999 or 2000. It's been synonymous with video gaming. The PlayStation brand is video games. All right. My point with asking this question was really to solicit kind of thoughts about whether that was jeopardized or not. And I think it absolutely is. It's part of a perfect storm. All right. So if I'm going to answer this in maybe just a few sentences, here's how I would answer it. The PlayStation brand is absolutely in crisis, number one. This is a very, very big test of the PlayStation brand. But some of you even went as far as to mention the ways in which Nintendo has responded, the ways in which the other brands of Nintendo and Xbox have kind of meshed into this. Well, it has something to do with this. Guys, face it. Sony is in third place, and a distant third place, in this console generation with the PlayStation 3. That's a position in which they have never found themselves before. I'm not saying it's going to end that way, but the Wii has won this hardware generation by 1.5 miles, even longer than that, because of how much hardware they sell. However, that doesn't determine how video game consoles get made, or the popularity of consoles, if you will, whatever and whatever and on, which is what some of you were trying to talk about. All right? I want to throw this up there. I'm not a fanboy of any particular brand. I don't care. All right? I'm just stating facts to you guys. Sony's in third place. They've sold fewer boxes than anybody else. They've sold less software than anybody else. That's just a numbers thing. The Wii has sold more boxes and more software than anybody else. Period. So what's happening between Sony and Microsoft is really fighting for second place. Now, if you want to look into the handheld market, obviously it's going to be a very different story. Except that it will be very different in the fact of the players. But Nintendo is still number one. It's still killing everybody. What I mean to say by this is that the numbers don't necessarily add up. If I can sell 100 Wiis at $100, right? And I know that's not the price, but just pretend it is. If I sell 100 Wiis at $100 that I make from the box, let's say, and then I have a PlayStation 3 where I might make a lot more than that from the box because it's $400 or whatever the case might be, hopefully recouping a lot more of that for my expense, and I have a better attach rate in terms of how many people buy games when they buy the system, then it can obviously pay off, and it has for Sony. My point is, this is not a console war question. Nintendo's already won, guys. The question is, who retains that? Because Nintendo's won, how does that fare for the PlayStation brand? And my point is that it doesn't bode well. Because if you listen now, I think Xbox, the word Xbox, not the actual Xbox itself, but if you listen to President Obama, for example, refer to video games, he does not say PlayStation, he does not say Wii, he does not say Sony, Microsoft, and Nintendo, he says Xbox. He's done it several times in many of his speeches. That means that Xbox, in his parlance, has become synonymous with video gaming. That does not bode well for the PlayStation brand. If you take it in combination with the fact that the Wii is selling the most hardware, they're about to announce a new console, which I think will probably not debut anytime soon. It will probably be a good 2 years away. But with that, there will be no shortage of R&D that's going to go into this new system, of all of these different things that Nintendo is going to put in to try to win the next console generation, in order to, but not by competing. Not by competing with Sony and Xbox. That's not at all what they're trying to do. So they're out of the picture. The other confluence of factors that are going in here is that motion gaming and casual gaming, guys, for better for worse, is taking over, right? So casual games much more than motion gaming, by the way. Although the two tend to go hand in hand. Remember, some of the best-selling game on Xbox for Kinect is nothing but a series of small mini games, a la Wii Sports for the Wii, right? These are kind of small, casual games that then get amalgamated into one box that ships out, that one platform that then everybody can play on. So the point is, guys, casual gaming and motion gaming is here to stay. Sony is not at all prepared for either. Now, they were third to the party in terms of motion gaming. I think to this point, all of us would say that their entry into motion gaming is the least attractive. I'm not saying it's not awesome. I'm not saying it's not cool, because it is. I'm just saying it's very apparent to most people they were third to the game, and that their offering is just not as good. The Kinect offers a completely different experience than the Wii, and you might give different reviews of it, and I completely, totally understand. I would probably agree with you. But the point is, Kinect offers a completely different experience. The experience on the PlayStation is kind of a improved version of what goes on with the Wii, and I'm not sure there's any kind of denying that. Now that we've had some time to battle that out, it's there. The point is, the PlayStation 3 has got another many years in its life cycle. There's no question about that, right, guys? The Xbox 360, for better or worse, has many years left in its life cycle. The Wii does not. The Wii is ready for the next generation. Maybe Nintendo has figured, we're not going to play with you guys, which they've done very well, by the way, and they're going to instead just have a different cycle and play on a 5 or 6 year cycle, which is great for them. And guess what, guys? They'll make more money than you can imagine doing that. That's great. But the reason the PlayStation brand doesn't benefit from that, and Xbox as well, is because Nintendo is far and above, kind of back in the leaderboard when it comes to gaming, with Xbox, and I say Xbox as a brand, taking a second place. The reason that PlayStation is in peril is because it's in third place, and it's getting kicked while it's down with this credit card stuff. And I know credit card data, as far as we know, has not been stolen. What I mean is the threat, the media, the press is bad. The multiple iterations of PSP, the multiple ad campaigns for PSP, all of everything surrounding PSP has really been very tough. Sony's made very limited, if any, money. In fact, they've lost money on the PSP Go, but it's a very, very difficult platform. They've had very limited success. That was the first indication that Sony wasn't just going to dominate any place they came into play with the PlayStation brand. So that's another place where it's in crisis. My point is, all of these things are happening at the same time, guys. So to say the PlayStation brand is not in crisis, I think, is absolutely to really just deny reality. It is in crisis. Does it mean that it's dead? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. Okay? The Xbox brand, as many of you pointed out, took a hit with the red ring of death concept. Some of you are even still feeling the effects of that today. Completely understand. I have an Xbox. I don't particularly love the machine, but it's never been